interesting conversation. So let's see. Today is what is it? The 16th?
15th. 15th.
Okay. 15th. Okay. 15th of January, 2026. And we're Adam Brand is here to discuss with us the his essay on squash, ignore, rescue. And
May I start, Victor, then?
yeah, let me just say, Adam, I wanted for people that may not know you too well, just um, that what that you've worked in the recruiting field
Yes.
and and
Most of my work is forensic,
yeah,
but
forensic
recruitment is
and
the part of
recruiting.
it, yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
While Sheila's here, I'd like to actually put forward a proposal as to where all of this comes from, because when Dr. Lake talked to the Institute, he was very shy about explaining the background of his ideas. So I've put some things together which you may disagree with. But if you look at squash, ignore, rescue, or squashed as well, ignored as well, rescued as well, if you look at squasher, he is saying that somebody wants to get things done, is angry, impatient. Now, if you look at Freud, Horney, Fromm, and the Enneagram, I think you see some connections there. If you take squash, you've got Freud's talking about phallic, and I want you to check on this because I may get this wrong. A phallic person who's concerned with power, performance, conquests. Okay. If you get horny, you've got moving against. So, how strong is my adversary? Can I dominate? Can I get success? In from, you've got exploited plus. So, you've got somebody who's confident, hostile, active, impulsive. Please
Hmm.
stop me if you feel this is not describing a squasher. And then with the Enneagram, you've got the boss, focused on power and control, open expression of anger, intensity in life. So I think that sort of fits together on squasher if you're happy about that. Then squashed is to do the best possible, may lack self-confidence. Here we have with Freud, superego and control. So you've got patterns of conscience, you've got forbidding, restrictive, compulsive sort of behavior. And then I can't fit horny or from there, but I think the Enneagram, you've got a perfectionist in one. So you've got focused on what is right and wrong and constant self-monitoring. So I don't know if you agree as a start, that would be a first way of slotting these people in. If anybody quickly disagrees, please shout. Then if you move on to ignorer, and Lake is saying somebody who wants to have room to maneuver, refuses to take things seriously. And you see this with Freud, and again, please shout if you don't agree, as somebody who's anal expulsive, compulsively pliant, generous, and orderliness. And then from, you've got marketing plus, so you've got social and witty, able to change, generous. I hope you agree all that with ignorer. And then Enneagram, you've got the epicure who wants multiple options, all commitments, including loopholes. He wants to be there, and charm as a defense. Now, that, as I see, is a quick summary of ignorer. Then ignored is somebody who wants to be perfect at something. And this is what Lake was talking about. And also somebody who's easily embarrassed. So I put that next to Freud, anal retentive, slightly miserly, slightly obstinate. In horny, moving away. The concern here will this person interfere? My goal is not to need others, not to be involved. Do you see that element of ignored coming out there? Then from, I'm not sure. I think there's an element of hoarding with from, slightly stubborn, slightly cold. With Enneagram, I see it as an observer collecting information, protection from inadequacy through self-sufficiency. Okay, so that's two out of the six. If we move to rescuer, Lake
Yeah.
said to help others, take responsibility. Now with Freud, I see that as oral sociable, receptive, friendly. Horny, I see it moving towards, will this person like me? Their goal is affection, intimacy. From, I see it receptive plus, responsive, devoted, trusting, good listener. Enneagram, I see it as a giver, focus on what others want, gain approval, avoid rejection, has difficulty recognizing their authentic self. So that's rescuer. Then you have rescued, and Lake says to be pampered, to sulk, to get their own way. And again, with Freud, that might be all frustrated, depending on the environment, slight ambivalence. With Fromm, it's exploitative minus. You've got egocentric, seducing, aggressive. And then with Enneagram, you've got tragic, romantic, negative about now, positive about the future, impatient with the flatness of ordinary feeling. Now, that would be a summary of how these 6 groups could fit together. And I don't know if you necessarily disagree, but I hope you get a feel that it does have some connection with accepted psychologists. The other thing I want to do before I open it up, I think Lake had something quite useful to say on this idea of psychoeconomics, because he said that there are 3 things we're talking about: energy, space, and time. The energy is delivered by the body. Space is delivered by spatial resources like sitting on a chair, places, property, and all the rest of it. Time is delivered by your adaptive ability, your repertoire of feelings acquired through learning and experience, your language skills, your emotions, your intelligence, and social resources. Now, the point that he was saying is if you have energy and time and no space, you've got a problem. If you've got space, no energy, no time, you've got a problem. If you run out of all 3, you're in crisis. So when he talks about needs and resources, he's really talking in an economic sense. And I think that's really quite original, because when people are managing, they don't realize that they've got to cope with those 3 elements. So I do think that comment that if you've got resources that are greater than your needs, you're in the surplus, therefore you can grow, and that's good management. If your resources are equal to your needs, it's break even in economic sort of comment, which means you're coping, but you could be in a defensive situation. But when your resources are less than your needs, you're in deficit in an economic sense. That is crisis, and other people have to come in and control you. Now, I think that is quite novel, because I've never heard of it before, and I rather like that side of it. But if we move on to what we're saying, what I'd like to ask everybody is, do they recognize themselves in any of these 3 broad characteristics? If I could quickly read out what he said. If you're a squash type, you remember as a child your parents with respect. Your characteristics are that you need to keep busy, achieve, compete, win, and your emphasis is on performance. Now, that's where do we get these types from? Where Lake said was when a family is in crisis, they try to control their children by attacking resources. And the resources we're talking about, energy, space, and time. So the way that they attack the resources to control the child during crisis comes up under squash, ignore, rescue. So with squash types, as you see in the essay, they're controlled by all the things that they do: physical attack, threatening movements, words as weapons, and so on. But that's the first group that I'd like you to consider as to whether you're a squash type. The next lot is ignore types. Ignore types can't remember their childhood. They were moved around a lot. They had hobbies that required lonely hours of study. They referred to their parents as slightly eccentric or people they didn't really know. The characteristics they have, they're slightly self-contained. They're loners, even though they seem to have many friends. They're expert at something, and this is very true with an ignored, though they modestly deny this. Some aspects of their life where they keep distance from others, and they may be perfectionists or collectors. And I think that's a remarkable summary of quite a large group of people. Then you have the rescue type. Rescued, by the way, I think are the worst people to cope with, but we get onto that. They refer to their parents in terms of loving and liking, hate or dislike. Social life is important in the family. They have many friends. The duties figure very heavily in childhood. The classic here is parents saying to their children, "You will look after me when I'm old," and that sort of controlling element. Um, and then you have they're fascinated by feelings, they stress sincerity, and they're afraid of not being liked. Now, when you get the rescued type, which are the most dangerous type, somebody wants to look beautiful. There's rather a tragic romantic type here, as we've discussed. You have somebody that you really can't do much about. So I'd like to ask Anne about that from a counseling point of view. Now, my question to all of you, do any of you recognize yourself in these very broad groupings? Can I start by saying I'm an ignore type? Is anybody else prepared to say, yes, this makes
I
some sort of sense?
I can tell you, um, the ignored type really fits me.
Could you
Ignored.
summarize that type again?
Yeah.
The ignore type cannot remember childhood. They moved around a
That's
lot.
true. I
They
can't
have
remember
hobbies.
anything earlier than 6 years
Was
old.
that true with you, Victor? Were you moved
Yes, it
around
was
a lot?
true. Yeah, we did move around a lot, and also I can't remember anything earlier than about 6 or 7. Even when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I couldn't remember anything.
You have a large family. Where are you in the
I'm
group?
about in the middle, number 8. There are 11. There were 11 in the family.
Gosh.
I was
So
4 or
ignored is
6 and I felt
actually,
ignored most of my life.
Yeah.
I still feel it.
well, I'm not
Yeah.
ignored anymore because my wife is a rescuer.
Ah,
Perfect.
Lovely. Ah,
So I'm having to learn, what is it, not to be like, to be more aware and to express, because
yes,
that's what she needs. Isn't that
yeah,
interesting? See, I already
yes,
picked up
yes.
on,
The shift you try to get.
yes.
Yes,
mm,
very true.
mm, mm.
And you're an expert at this sort of thing. Where would you put yourself? Would you agree in it? Would you agree with any of these at all? Because I think from a counseling point of view, it's very helpful to be able to take a client and slot them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think I'm an ignored as well.
Yes.
We didn't move around a lot, but I was the youngest, and all my siblings were a lot older than me. So I basically grew up like an only child. And my parents were older as well. Lived on a farm, so there wasn't much entertainment for a child, put it that way. So I spent a lot of time on my own.
Oh,
But yeah,
Very
no, I
creative.
agree.
yeah.
Sorry.
Did you write novels? Were you very creative?
I wrote, yes, I suppose I did write letters. I don't know about novels, but or poetry, but I did write a lot of things. Yes, kept a diary and that sort of thing. Mm.
Tamara,
I,
I don't know you, but what do you would you classify yourself, or would you disagree with it?
You call us?
Sorry.
Camera.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the squash. Our whole thing is about staying busy, achieving, performing.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
interesting, isn't it? But do
Yeah.
you agree that that was as a result of your parents in a crisis and controlling you? Because what I'm interested is why do people get the way they are?
Yes, I was very controlled. I was the only girl, and there were lots of rules.
Because the principle of this is as a child in crisis, the way you were controlled is the way when there's a crisis as an adult, you will control other people.
Oh, yeah, I suppose I do. I do. I expect a lot.
So there's something in it from that point of view.
Sure.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm a 3 on the Enneagram as well. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. And does
Yeah.
that tie in
Yeah.
with what we were talking about? That ties in.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're friends with Ruth, who is also the quintessential three.
I know. Yeah. She's got the briefcase. I just have a bag.
I too was brought up very much like you, Tamara, where we followed rules, we did things as a family.
Yep.
But I'm in the middle of four brothers.
I'm in the
So
middle.
in a way, I got a lot of attention, but in a way I was ignored also. I think everything was centered around my brother's sports and their activities rather than mine. I felt like I was an observer, and I'm a
Interesting.
9 on
You're a
the
9.
Enneagram.
Oh, you're a 9.
9. Oh, wow.
Gosh.
Peacemaker.
Well, that's
I was
easy.
number 3 and I had 3 brothers. I'm the only girl.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My dad was an 8.
I'm the only
My
girl,
mother-
and then
my
I
mother
had
was a
4
9.
brothers.
Mm.
Why, Carl, do you say are you ignored?
Family of 6. Neither of my parents went beyond 8th grade. Uneducated farm kids, and a lot of control. My dad was an 8. My mother was a 9. So anger was the coin of the realm.
Mm.
That's a very good point.
Mm.
Anyhow, are we sort of in agreement as to how
Well, you didn't ask
parents
me.
behave? Because there's a lot of
What am I,
how
chopped
parents-
liver? I identify with a lot of that ignored too, because as a child, my mother was, I mean, I was the oldest, and I had a brother almost 7 years younger. And my mother went out to work and I was alone a lot. And then she became a Jehovah's Witness. And so she was out teaching other people the Bible, and I was home by myself.
Wow.
Mm. Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
but having said that, do you see the additional things that ignored people sort of require the way they behave? I mean, I certainly, there is a switch between ignorer and ignored. An
Mm.
ignorer is somebody who jokes his life of the party and so on. Ignored is somebody who's a perfectionist, detail, and all the rest of it. Which are you extrovert or introvert on your ignore?
Me, definitely
Yes,
introvert.
Sheila.
Introvert. And you know what? Because I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, and so I never feel part of a group. Even if I
Mm.
like everybody there, I always feel I'm on the outside and
Well,
ignored.
yeah, that's very interesting. So that ignore element does apply in your case.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. Um,
Mm.
I think the thing that we could move on to is what is the writing showing? If it's useful to people, in fact, we ought to look at whether it is useful. I don't know what you thought, Anne, about the sort of counselling side, but if you look at the way people operate, the squash are doing people. They want to get things done. The squashed are want to do the best possible. And therefore, I really quite like what you learn from quickly looking at the handwriting, negotiating and counseling. I think when I have talked to business people and you get somebody like Trump, you know he's a squash type and you know he's not going to listen. He's only interested in you doing what he wants immediately. And therefore, I think from a negotiating point of view, you learn very quickly from the handwriting. Somebody who's a squash type doesn't want any small talk. You've got to do what he wants immediately. And from a counseling point of view, Anne, this idea that you counsel a squash type to be less tough on other people, or if they're squashed, to be less tough on themselves. Do you find that in a counseling situation?
You could find that. It's more likely to be how they treat themselves, how they see themselves. I think
Well, is this a squashed ED
this is
squashed?
the
In other words,
squasher. Yeah,
oh,
it's
okay, but
it's
that
squash.
sounds squashed. It
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
squashed
squash.
to do the
Yeah,
best possible.
yes,
And if you
yeah.
come across a squashed, would you say to them, "Don't be so tough on yourself"? How would you counsel them?
Well, yes. Well, you'd have to get them to realize what they're doing to themselves. That's how you would do it. You'd get them to talk about experiences that they've had and how they feel about it afterwards, and work at it from that point of view, I think. Because you'd have to get them to realize. I couldn't say to them, look, you're really hard on yourself. They would need to come to that realization
On their own.
on their own.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
And
That's how I would work. But having the handwriting, brilliant. Yes, indeed. Every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. But I find dealing with squash people is quite interesting. This idea that you biff and surprise them straight away so that you don't take anything from them. You go straight back and attack. Now, I don't know how that would work with somebody like Trump, but it is interesting that Carney in Canada doesn't tolerate any nonsense from Trump. And he's starting to respect him because he's come straight back. Now,
Mm,
I don't know about Zelensky, but there is an element when you get somebody who's a squasher, you've got to fight back pretty quickly. You've got to
yeah.
biff.
because
And I
that's
like
how
that
bullies
style of
are.
biff. And then later on, you're empathetic and how can we trade and how can we deal with each other? But a squasher has got to be hit very hard quickly. And again, I don't know if anybody would agree with that.
Because they're bullies.
And they've got to be bullied very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes.
To bully
Yes.
them back.
The,
You know
the
what?
squash.
This reminds me of many, many years ago when I was in the corporate world and I was working for a doctor who was the angriest man I'd ever met, a hair transplant doctor, and he would just abuse everybody. And one day he yelled at me. I was the assistant administrator in the medical office, and he yelled at me, and I said, "Don't you ever talk to me that way again." And he never did. He always
Mm,
treated me with more respect after that.
Because you were
mm,
straight back at him.
Yes.
mm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't
perfect.
even think about it. It just really annoyed me that he would talk to me that way.
But
mm.
most people don't react that way.
No.
They cringe and hide. And
Yes.
therefore, the squasher knows they've got you and they carry on squashing,
Yes.
as we've seen with
Mm.
Trump.
hmm
Adam, I wanted to address something that, Anne, you had been talking about the fragile narcissist. And
Yes.
I had kind of identified that one of my wife's brothers had those characteristics. And when I was reading the rescued type in here, not the rescuer, but the rescued, he fit the bill. And in fact, he was the baby of the family. There's alcoholic dynamics in the family. So he was also like the hero in the family role. So he was kind of got all the attention, but he demanded all the attention.
Yeah.
And he still has those characteristics. And yet he continued pretty much all his life and still is dependent on really family members to be providing him, even though he
Baby of
doesn't
the family.
acknowledge that. Yes, it's a weird dynamic, but it's because like that's that thing with that fragile narcissist. They have to feel like they're they can do anything. They're the king. And yet to be dependent at the same time, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Dr. Lake saying rescued are the most difficult people to deal with
Mhm.
because
Yes.
they use this lovely word sorry to manipulate you.
I
And you
agree.
have to say, stand on your own feet.
Mm.
But if we move on to ignore, where you've got ignorer, you've got somebody who's very jokey and is about having. So you've got doing with squash, having about ignore. And then I'm a great believer that ignore types, and this applies to me, it's all about information options. I find this, and we can move on to this with the handwriting, that they have quite wide word spacing. can be quite hypercritical, but they have this need for information. And I found that in business, if you say to somebody, you're negotiating with this person, now you may know nothing about handwriting, but if you tend to see this rather wide word spacing, this sort of demand for information, you cannot say to ignore type, trust me, because a red light comes onto their mind and they immediately go into, hypercritical, what is he talking about? I don't trust this person. And therefore, I think from quickly looking at the handwriting is quite useful. So in terms of counselling, I'd ask you, Anne, that if you've got an ignorer, you've got to get them to be more serious, to stop them joking and not be prepared to talk about their feelings. Again, as a counsellor, is that ever true, Anne?
When people come for counselling, they've normally got some form of emotional difficulty. And I would imagine with the ignorer, you're talking about somebody who's likely to be causing problems with somebody else in the office. So the ignorer is unlikely to come for counselling.
Ah,
Do you see what I mean?
yeah,
It's so
Mhm.
the people who will come to counselling, I'm thinking, not knowing much about this, would be the squashed, the ignored, and the rescued. Well, I don't
yeah,
know about the rescued. The rescued would be difficult, I think,
yes,
to
yes,
get to work. And of course, bearing in mind the therapy that I do works with the inner child. So it's back to childhood issues and how that child has grown up in that environment, more so than dealing with the adult today.
And if you talk about the child within, do you ever find that the child within, depending on whether squash, ignore, or rescue, does have a similarity to what I summarized in sense of the child doesn't remember the parents being there, or
Oh,
they remember the
absolutely.
child
Yeah.
being this, that, and the other. So there is some link there by the sound of it.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. There
Yeah.
is. Yes. As soon as you mentioned the child, the childhood issue, perceptions, then I could relate straight away. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. But when you
Absolutely.
have the shy expertise of the ignored, how do you lift their profile?
I'm
Um, simply by getting them to feel more comfortable in their own skin. If they feel that everybody else is all busy all around, so you teach them that that's okay, that other people can be busy. It doesn't mean to say that they don't love you or they don't want you. It's just that they're busy doing other things. So it's being comfortable in their own skin, comfortable in groups, knowing that you're not going to relate to everybody that's in that group.
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
Yes.
In a
Adam,
nutshell.
I would say it's a simple answer. Someone who listens will change their life. Now, people don't know how to listen these days, but that's what counseling is about listening. One of the psychologists, how I was trained in the US was the Rogerian approach. And Carl Rogers, his whole idea was about this positive regard without judgment. And so all of the
Yes.
techniques around that is not to make an interpretation even, but to
No.
just acknowledge the
Yeah.
person, in naturally, so that they know that you're really listening and you're not just hearing them. You're
No.
listening to them and you're responding to them.
That's
And
it.
that change, that I that changed me. I know, I mean, I went to different counselors, especially when I was a graduate student. And there was this one counselor, I could tell, I could feel he
Mm.
was listening in a way that I didn't see others do. Like like they were good and everything or whatever. They weren't, they were nice, but this one really listened. And when you're listened to like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it's very profound.
But
And
Victor,
yeah.
if you are a counselor, how
Mhm.
do you control yourself from giving action plans? Because that's the thing I think is so difficult for a counselor.
It was the hardest thing for me to do, even to react, because every time I heard something, I mean, I have trouble now. I've got so much to share, I've got so many things. I keep wanting to interrupt people right now. It was it was hard to learn. It just took practice.
Oh, that's very good.
And it was kind of one of the things that in my feedback, well, Um, yeah, it took, and I still have trouble with it. My wife is a better listener than I am. I tell her that all the time. She's a natural. See, but see, she's a rescuer, so that's in her nature.
Yeah, well, that's very good.
She just listens without responding, with reacting or something, just listening.
But I do like this sort of broad grouping. I mean, if you think of squash being doing and ignore being having, you get to rescue about being. And I love these sort of broad groupings. If you take the rescuer, who's very responsible, um, I suppose again, you've got to try and make them be more selfish. Is that true again?
Yes.
Um, because the classic thing about rescuers, I gather, is they're no good at timekeeping. They're going to a very important meeting, a car breaks down, and they help change the wheel when they should be somewhere else. And that's the key sort of quality of a rescuer. They're always there to help, even though they've got other targets they should be meeting. Um, but the one I really love is the rescued, because I remember Tony saying there is no hope for a rescued. There is nothing you can do about them because they will always be demanding, um, and you can only confront them. You can't go along with them because they will just use you up and take everything you've got. You can't say, "Well, if you need help, ring me," because they will ring you and they won't improve, they won't learn, they won't get anywhere. So I think this whole thing about rescued is terribly rich, because if you've got a rescued person to deal with, like a tragic romantic, a female situation where they're wearing a lovely black dress, they look very young for their age, and they're there to be looked after. I don't know how you deal with them. I think it's incredibly difficult. They've got to take a risk of self-sufficiency. Now, the one you were saying who was a narcissist, he would not take the risk of that self-sufficiency. He was sitting there saying, the family is there to look after me. And I don't know how you do that. Have you ever had to deal, Anne, with these people that are, as Victor says, well, yeah, it's your term, isn't it? This narcissistic. How do you cope with them? Because you're
Well,
confronting them and they do not want to be confronted.
I wouldn't say I'm confronting them in how I work with people, but I do realize that one client who convinced me that the problem was with his wife.
Mhm.
I realized only like when I was doing the research into the narcissistic personality that he must have been a narcissist. I didn't realize it at the time. I don't think his wife realized it because I knew her quite well. So no, I would completely agree. The rescue is difficult, especially if and I think you could also call these people poor me's. They're very this is perhaps another side of it with the rescued, especially with the Enneagram 4. But they're very oh, poor me, this has happened and that's happened, but they don't want to move on.
Right.
I think that's the difference. You
Okay.
pick up very quickly when someone isn't willing to move on from the tragic situation that they're in. Because all these things happen to them, and in a way they enjoy it. That is the problem. They don't want to. There's no reason for them to move on, because independence is so frightening to them. So they are difficult. They are difficult. And I can't honestly say that I've brought anybody through to that point,
Yes.
because I realize quite soon on they're not going to shift.
So I see these I was looking into the narcissism stuff, and I saw all of these YouTubes of people talking about different things related to the narcissism. And one of them was talking about how, I forget what they call it. I think they call it the empath, but it fits the
Yeah.
rescuer description. So the empath, or the rescuer, is
Yeah.
often
Yes.
often becomes attached or drawn to the rescued, and they get into this really weird, impossible to deal with dysfunctional relationship.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I agree.
because all of
Agree.
those things, the rescuer is wanting to save the rescued, and the rescued is manipulating the rescuer to want to save them, but they never
Yes.
really are saved. See,
No.
they always, it becomes just impossible. Anyway, that's
like the Cartman drama triangle.
yes.
Yeah.
Adam, Chuck has a comment, but he says he has builders nearby and it's too noisy, so
Okay.
he's asked me to read what he wrote, if I can read it on my phone.
Mhm.
He says, when a flashlight grows dim or quits working, you don't throw it away, you change the batteries. Same with people. Some need AA, attention and affection, or AAA, attention, affection, and acceptance. Then he's got compassion, direction. Still don't shine. Simply sit with them quietly and share your light. Listen.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
brilliant, isn't it?
Pretty
Yes,
good.
Oh, that's
yes,
wonderful.
Chuck always has very interesting points
Yeah.
of view.
Well, I think that's marvelous.
Mm.
What did you think about Lake's sort of mixture where he puts two things together?
Mm.
Because I have found that quite useful. I know somebody who's a classic rescuer, but got a bit of a squash as well, and it's quite an interesting combination because it makes them quite manipulative. So they're rescuing you, but often it's. Let me see what he said about that. Yes. Um,
With
what am I
strings
saying?
attached. Yeah.
Squasher rescue. I'm not sure that's. Oh no, rescuer squasher. I think is a better one.
Mhm.
Arch manipulator Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Help you to help himself, and I think
Mm.
that's very interesting because a rescuer is a very helpful person. When you
Mm.
mix it with a squasher, it's quite interesting the way that this manipulation comes in, and
Mm.
you can often see it. I mean, the lovely sort of shark's tooth type
Yes.
manipulation suddenly turns up in a rescuer writing, and you think,
Mm.
crumbs, this is a real oddball. So I think some of the sequences that he came up with, where you have the two-part sequence, is quite impressive and quite useful because it broadens the whole thing out. I don't know if anybody disagreed with any of those, but I found them quite helpful.
Yeah, I was thinking I like that because I was realizing as I read through it that I had some characteristics in another one. I guess
Mm.
yeah, it was like the not simply ignored. Ignored seemed to be stronger, but I also felt like I had some things related to the ignorer. See,
Yes,
slight.
the point is it
And
does switch.
so when you were talking later about how there might be this combination where one of the types predominated, but you had some from the other, then
Yes.
it affected it colored the whole setup
Yes.
to make
Yes.
it a little bit different. Yes.
So it's like the stress on counter dominance where you have this other option coming in. So there was no strong disagreement with that approach. Well then, would it be worthwhile moving on to handwriting before we finish? How much time we got? Quarter of an hour, have we?
Yeah,
Quarter
we're
of an hour.
good.
Yeah, about
Yeah,
quarter of an
let me pull up the handwriting here for us. And
hour.
I opened it up to there we go.
That manipulative rescuer sounds like
What can everyone see this?
2 on the
Yes.
Enneagram.
Mm.
And hold on, I'll get to the. Is everybody speed reading there? Watch your eyes. Okay, here's the handwriting. I think yeah, that's where it starts.
Well,
So
if you are eventually getting to squasher,
let's see. So here, the
oh,
ignored.
that's ignored. I think it should be in sequence.
Oh, okay.
SIR.
Rescuer.
The squasher should be earlier
Oh,
on.
the first one.
Yeah, slightly
Okay.
earlier. Is it slightly earlier?
Yeah, let's see.
Or maybe it doesn't come up.
Oh, did I miss one out? Let me have a look.
Okay.
No,
Maybe you did it.
Sheila, you didn't. You didn't, Sheila.
No? Okay.
It's definitely in the book.
Ignore.
Let's have a look.
Oh,
It's definitely in the book.
well, maybe. Let me see.
It's
Oh,
page 214.
Yeah.
So you've got 214, but the actual example is not coming up.
Yeah, I see it in the book. Huh.
Mm.
Okay.
But when I'm talking to people, and that
Here,
doesn't make.
let me do this. I'll hold the book up. I'm going to close this.
Okay.
We'll
Do you want me to share my screen? I've got it up here.
Oh, did you find it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
I've got the original book up here.
Okay. Does it show up then?
It does yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, share your screen.
There. So
There we go.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
You see that the feeling I have when I'm talking to people who don't know about graphology, they want simple discussions. And I always say with squash, it's basically about angles. If you see angles, now that is terribly crude and very upsetting for graphologists, but basically you're looking for feelings of vigor, pen pressure above average. I like the sort of military style and rhythm of this. It's quite forceful and powerful. And I think the power that you get is shown in the sort of going to get things done, straight baselines, straight downstrokes, and slight stress on the end stroke, which is a determination, isn't it?
are we talking about this one then, the squash?
No, they're not necessarily the squash. No, I'm sticking with that one, the one on page 194, as it is. Now, I don't know if you'd agree that is a squasher characteristic, but it seems to have a lot of power and determination. One always turns to Trump's signature for a squasher, but I feel that's got a lot of power and could be considered to be a squasher type. I don't know if you agree.
I kind of like that on that first line that after said that I'm not sure said in the way those angles are, and then how that goes underneath the baseline, the last stroke straight down, and how firm that the whole thing is. That really shows to me someone who's very aggressive and exerting their will and
Is that word
pushing
phone? As I said on the phone.
That is firm,
on
yes.
the
If
on.
you look at
Yeah,
that P, that P
yeah.
is cutting right through.
Talk
And if
about
you look at the
dogmatic.
last word, her, look at the way the pen has been pulled towards the body.
Wow.
Very forcefully.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt that was a squasher type.
hmm
I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
dogmatic.
Mm.
Talk about aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that is.
Um,
Yeah.
if you then move to the squashed, you
Mhm.
know, somebody wants to do the best possible. They may lack some self-confidence. I found this sample. Again, I like the idea of angles because it's not to accept things; it's to improve conditions. Um, if you can lift it up slightly, that bottom example, Sheila, does that come up at all a little?
You're talking about this
Yeah,
one?
yeah, that comes up. Yeah, that one in the middle there. I felt that have squash tendencies. It's quite rigid. It's got upper's own emphasis, left slant, baseline slightly sloping down to the right, though I know it's on printed lines. Um, and the middle zone height is varying, so there's a certain lack of self-confidence there. It's got some suspendu too, so there's indecisiveness.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if you would agree that that is a squashed example.
Mm.
Hmm. Hmm. Well,
But
I think
that,
because of the left slant, that certainly would move it in that direction. I just got the text I was expecting, so I'm going to have to go.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I think I've got the other handwritings. It was just that one.
okay.
So I
So I'm
can
sorry, I have to. If
yeah.
I don't stop sharing, you
Thank
won't be
you.
able to
You
see
know,
those.
it was good you were here.
I'm sorry I
yeah,
have to leave. I really am, but
yeah.
yes, I've got to
Bye,
Oh,
go.
Sheila. Bye.
And
Take
yeah.
Bye,
Tamara
Sheila.
said she was sorry she had to leave too. All right. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
see
Bye,
ya.
Sheila.
Oh
But
wait,
Victor, you got the next lot
actually,
down then?
actually I don't have that. That next page is missing. So let's do this. Um, let's do this. I'll if you pin my well, you could even do this if you've got the book. Um, because I just realized I have this next page is missing too. It's the one on
If
the
anybody's
back.
got the book, yeah, at
Yeah,
200, page 215, that's it. Then we move on to Ignora, which
yeah.
is
Let me.
Oscar
So
Wilde.
let's see. I'm trying
Right.
Yeah,
ignore.
that's
Yeah.
if you lift slightly out there, that's ignored. If you lift it up, you'll get Ignora.
Oh,
Mm.
sorry.
Yeah, there. That is actually just Oscar Wilde. Now, what I was pushing for
And
simplicity.
you guys can, sorry, you can pin it to pin my screen and it'll be big on your screen. Go
Okay.
up to my corner and it'll be big on your screen. Okay, go ahead.
Now, the point about the ignorer is this need to have room to maneuver
Hmm.
and somebody who refuses to take things seriously. I rather like the Oscar Wilde because that sums him up. But I felt that the writing was about space outwards. Now, what does that mean? It means to create vistas, okay? So I see an ignorer having quite a lot of spacing as being an issue, so quite wide spacing. Now, that may be terribly crude, but I do see that as a sort of fundamental quality. It's well laid out, good baselines, right tendencies, comes across as seeking company, even though he may be private, non-involved. Fluid, wavy line or secondary thread, simplification and extended end strokes. And I felt that Oscar Wilde, purely because we know his temperament, was a good example of ignorer, who was, jokey, showing off. I mean, what was his last words? This wallpaper is disgusting. Either I have to go or it does, and that's
Ah,
he
yeah,
died. And I think that quality of jokiness was quite remarkable. Now,
yeah.
would you agree that um, Oscar Wilde is a good example of ignorer, whereby you've got that space quality, where he wants space. He's out there. He's performing, and I think his writing is a good example of that. I don't know if anybody disagrees,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So
because
you,
I mean.
sorry.
No, but I'm trying to push simplicity. I think we agree on the squash. There's an element of angles. I think with ignore, there's an element of space having expertise.
Yeah.
With squash, it's all about energy, doing, anger. With ignore, it's more about having expertise, having space. And I think the ignorer is about having space, performing, big picture type person. And therefore, in the handwriting side, one's looking for space. I know this is terribly basic, but it's trying to get something that is you can pin onto. Um, I feel that ignore people have this information requirement, and when you have this very wide word spacing in relation to the height of the middle zone, you often have quite a hypercritical person who's all about information, all about checking. I don't know if you agree with that. Well, could we move then, Victor, on to ignored, which again
I
I
just realized you described one of my brothers with the ignored.
is that right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I
Now,
mean the
could I ask you,
ignorer.
Victor?
The ignorer. That was it. The
Could I ask you, Victor, what's his writing like?
um quite angular and except yeah, there's a lot of spaces. I remember very yes. Yes.
So this
He's an
part about
introvert, by
space,
the way. He's definitely introverted. And yeah.
but that would make him more ignored rather than ignore.
Yeah, ignored is
Okay.
what.
Um, this one, of course, is again I feel is about space. Where
Oh, the one
you can
underneath.
offer,
Is
yeah,
that
you
it?
can off. That's ignore because it's
Okay,
space.
I
Now,
see.
I'm still interested in space, but not necessarily wide space. I find that ignored tends to be closely packed letters and words, rather stiff, rather disturbed rhythm. Um,
Hmm.
left margin narrowing, descending lines, arcades, and a bit pasty. If you can lift the page and find ignored, that
Oh,
is
is that this one?
page 216.
Okay.
Um, I think you've got that on your screen, haven't you?
Yes, I do. That's this one, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Now,
yeah, I can share that now.
I actually know that person, and he does fit the ignored quality. Um, this sort of need for expertise and perfection. Um, and therefore, I still felt there was a space issue there. But would you agree that that person looks ignored?
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
we need Carl in here now and look at his writing.
Mhm.
It's definitely left slant
Mhm.
away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. It's
Um,
very contained within itself, isn't it?
yes.
Well, and I see the space, it's um everything's very close together.
Mm.
I feel
And
this is a spacing issue of being
yeah.
cramped.
Hmm.
Um, so again, it's a very crude summary, but I still feel that ignore, without the ignorer or the ignored, has a space issue.
Hmm.
If it's more
Yeah.
extrovert, it's wider space. If it's more introvert, it's cramped, tight.
Yeah.
And I see this as very tight, cramped writing, and therefore likely to be ignored. Um, uh, anyhow, this is very crude because it's difficult to pick on one word when
Well,
one's trying to describe somebody.
well, and Adam, that's the advantage of type is to kind of like place them into some kind of area, and then you look at more detail.
Yes, yes,
But
Mm.
but it's
Yeah.
a broad stroke, and
yes.
yeah, when you understand how to use it, it's it uh it helps you be pretty accurate pretty quickly, and then you
Yes,
can
it's a
verify
way
it
of
with
checking.
more
But
detail.
I mean,
Yeah.
the trouble is this is awfully crude to say squash, either ED or ER, is about
Hmm.
angles of some sort. Ignore is about space of some sort, either
Right.
ignore or ignored. If you move on to
Okay.
rescuer, now,
Adam, can we just
oh
hold
yes,
on a second?
Yeah.
With the ignorer, I agree with the space issue because the ignorer wants to be seen, wants to be noticed,
Yes.
is overcompensating for the fact that they were ignored.
Yeah.
Whereas the ignored is almost I wouldn't say that's a content writing, but they're almost content to do what they need to do in the space that they've got. So utilizing, so the space thing is an important issue, I think, here with
But
the
is it?
ignored and the ignorer.
But when you say ignored, do you see the ignored person more at peace with themselves? Is that what you're saying? They're aware that
Well,
that's
when they've come to terms with it,
yes.
yes, I would, because speaking as an ignored, we're able to enjoy our own company,
Right.
whereas like the extrovert couldn't, or the ignorer possibly couldn't. They
Right.
want to be seen, they want that attention. That's only my perception of what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the point is what I'm doing is very crudely is trying to have trigger words that say, what am I looking at?
Yeah.
And my trigger word for ignore, either ignorer or ignored, is space. In the same way
Space.
that
Yeah,
my
I
trigger
agree.
word for squash is angle. And I know
Yeah.
if John Beck was still alive, he'd be having a fit. I'd be very upset.
He's probably having a fit right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh, we do miss John.
Yeah.
Victor, if you move on to
Okay.
rescuer and lift it up, this is Elizabeth Fry. And I felt that when you move into the trigger word here, it's to do with slant. I know it's horrible to say this and it's so crude, but you tend to get the rescuer going towards people being right slant,
Yeah.
and garlands and all the things we expect. And therefore, I'm picking on slant as something I think is possibly, a key here. And then, of course, you've got rounded forms, garlands, dominant upper zone, weak middle zone, possibly. They're worrying about, getting things right. But I see that this Elizabeth Fry would be called a rescuer because there's a lot of warmth. There's garlands, there's right slant, there's pastiness. There's a lot of warmth in that writing. And again,
Yeah.
would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think a rescuer
And
is
look at her inability to be to pay attention to time. It's related to how she messes up her margin on, especially
yes,
on the right
yes,
side, and the
doesn't she?
variability
Yes,
in that,
that
having
is so interesting. If you
yeah.
look at yes, that's so interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
Rushing to the end and
Yeah.
not
And
going.
sometimes rushing to the end, other times not even getting there.
No.
Gosh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
And the second to last line, whether they sort of slumps
Yes.
down.
Yes.
I mean, I do like. I mean, she's known as a rescuer, so it's a bit of a specious argument, but I do think it's a good example,
Yes.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's got some nice, generous endings. It doesn't have the sort of truncated endings. The D's are sort of delta lifting up.
How does that rescuer feel about people trying to rescue them?
I think they find it very difficult.
Yeah.
They
No.
do.
I can
They
assure you
Yes.
it's very
They do
hard
not
for them
allow
to
it.
ask for help.
Yeah.
They're
No.
always
I,
on
I
Won't
the-
knew
ask.
I knew a couple people who were twos in the Enneagram, and when they didn't feel there was enough gratitude for their efforts, man, they explode with anger
That's
like
right.
you wouldn't believe. I was
That's right.
shocked. I mean, and they go on and on and on too. They
Right.
really expect gratitude for their
I
efforts.
find that to be very true.
But
Well,
Yeah.
appreciation
to
and
me,
recognition, I think, is very important for her.
but I see that as the manipulative side of the rescuer.
It is.
Yes.
I've done
Yeah.
this for you. I want some applause.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. If we move, Victor, to
Okay.
rescued, to me,
Okay.
the most dangerous type of writing there is.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I
Okay.
see this as to do with slant again, the trigger word, and here we have slight irregular slant.
Mm.
A lot of me in this writing. Look at the dominant middle zone.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
you know, to me, this is classic rescued writing.
Yeah.
You know, the ideals, the pressure, the sudden angles, the left-handing triangles, the sharp
Mm.
pointed endings, the lines and words are unparalleled, often oversized capitals. I'd see this as a really classic bit of rescued, and this sort of
Yes.
person would really worry me. And again, I don't know if you agree, but I'm talking very simplistically on the slant, that the
Mm.
mixed slant, the moodiness, the demands are very,
Mm.
even the baseline, look at the way that starts well and then collapses.
Mm.
You know, come to my
Mm.
rescue. I'm doing my best. I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
cope. So I felt that was a strong rescued bit of writing. Again, I don't know if you agree.
Mhm.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
that's good. Mm.
Anyhow, Victor, our time is up.
Oh,
So I don't know if there's anything else that we can cover.
well, you did that right on time.
Mm.
Very, very interesting, Adam,
Yeah.
and well done.
Yeah.
Let
We're
me
gonna let you
Very
come
Thank
good.
back.
you.
let me
Thank you.
close this up and we'll be facing each other. I wanted to just make a comment about something that you said at the beginning of your article that has got me thinking. And because I've been trying to figure out how to talk about the difference between traits and types. Okay. For years, for you know,
Hmm.
for about a decade, I've been trying to figure out because there's different ways of assessment and there's different ways they're real different approaches and they're often confused. Um, but what you were saying about the type as being the broad and the other part about how it shows the interconnection between the different characteristics the person has. So a type is never a single thing, it's always a group of characteristics. And that's what makes it powerful. And it's also that when you've got that it's classic, it's never types are only um like they're abstract. No one is ever an exact type.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
when you understand that and that they're broad, they kind of help you to start looking for, well, how are they like this type? And, this ideal type, and how are they different from this type? And it guides your analysis very quickly to the main things. Whereas the traits, where the traits are useful is that they're just single characteristics that are independent from each other by that's what they are. They're independent. And their assessment process it has they're not interrelated. That's why you have the statistical analysis. Um, all of those personality tests are about identifying single traits that are not, like to determine, okay, this is there and this is there. Each thing distinct and unrelated to the other, you know.
Sounds
And
like you're saying a
so
type is a combination of traits.
exactly. Except you see, you can't say that because the type is from a different approach. So you have to say a type is a combination of character traits,
Okay.
and and the traits are independent personality traits. Then you've got it because the type is more. That's why the handwriting analysts, that's why it fits so well with the graphology because it came out of this character structure. Because you see, the character traits are about how they either make that characteristic stronger or weaker, depending on how they're influencing each other. But the personality traits, from the tests, how they're determining personality traits, they're not related to each other. It's just that it doesn't have to do with how it's influencing one or the other characteristics, because they're independent from each other. Anyway, you basically said that. You were saying it in different words, in real simple words. But it made me realize that this is a very significant difference. And the best thing is that you use the two together, that you understand, that how to use the two together when you have, and the problem is that they come from different theoretical approaches to what personality is.
Kind of a hybrid,
Yeah,
a typo.
Yeah.
Call it a typo.
right, right. Type. But yeah, so the handwriting actually, I think it's able to use the trait approach because it's actually there, and it's able to use the type, and it provides like a bridge between these two different kind of theories of measurement of the personality. Anyways, sorry, Adam. You got me really thinking. You really stimulated my
You had an aha moment.
yes, from your article. I wanted to really share that because I agree with you about how powerful type is to be used, and the caution to not forget that it's not necessarily about accuracy. It's
No.
about getting a big picture.
I see it as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
The traits?
The type.
Type, I'm sorry. Type.
Yeah, type as a starting point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, very fascinating. I'll close down.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you both.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank
Bye then. Bye.
I think Lena Rivnik, the art of Lena Rivnik is next next month. Is that February? Yes.
Right.
The art of analysis.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
to let you know.
Very
Thanks
good.
again, Adam. You take care.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Victor.
You were
Thanks, Adam. Thank you,
Bye.
Victor.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you again,
Bye.
Adam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
Debbie.
Bye.